Hey guys, Solomon here. I hope you're having a great day. In today's video, we're going over a very unique and interesting option with the Mieses Opening for white. Now, this move, the Mieses Opening, starts out with d3, and that's it. Right when you play this, you are playing into the Mieses. Now, why play this? Okay, some of you might be wondering, why would we ever even think about playing a move like d3 over d4? Well, in some opening options, I think it's actually smart to think of things, or interesting to think of things, from the black point of view, okay? Because of that, let's flip this board. Now, this move from white might seem a little bit strange, but let's rethink this for a second, okay? White just moved up their queen's pawn one square. Now, white might not do this very often on the first move, but black does it all the time, okay? A good example of this, let's say white plays e4, is d6 with the Pirc Defense. Right? We move our queen pawn up one square, and boom, we are fighting for the dark squares on our side of the board, okay? Now we are playing a Pirc, okay? And, the idea is that we're giving our opponent the center, but we're going to go after that center for the rest of this game, right? Playing this move of knight f6. I mean, if you see a move like knight c3, most players go with g6 and fianchettoing that bishop. We can also play c6 and go into a Czech Pirc, okay? Now, let's say we see this move e5, white just forging ahead. Is the Pirc in trouble? No. We just take that pawn, and then when they take back, notice our queen's just opened up. We capture their queen. The king comes over, knight g4. We're attacking two pawns. You can't defend both. So something like the Pirc with d6 and knight f6 is very solid, and it's going to be hard for white to break things open because we're going to take first, and if you take back, the d file opens immediately. Okay. Now, what's another kind of opening against e4 that often has d6? The Sicilian Defense. Let's say we play this move as c5. Okay, going into that Sicilian. I play the Hippopotamus Defense as white and black. I mean, I've been playing that exclusively in tournaments for a couple of years, and it helped me get to the national master level. But I played the Sicilian Najdorf for a very long time. Okay, one of, honestly, in my opinion, Garry Kasparov is the greatest Najdorf player ever. He had so much success with it. What is the Sicilian Najdorf? It's when you play d6, d4 is played, you play knight f6, and when it's defended, a6. Okay. And let me warn you, there's so much theory here. Okay, so if you're not willing to put in hundreds of hours or not wanting to, by the way, I totally understand if you don't. It's honestly crazy how much time I put into it. That's okay. Okay, but first off, let me just show you. I mean, we have bishop e3 here for white. Okay, the English attack. We have the main line. Bishop e2 with more of a classical setup. h3 can be played. Bishop c4 with the Sozin attack. There's so much theory here, and it gets crazy. But what I'm trying to show you here is that even against e4 with the Sicilian defense, d6 oftentimes becomes a very important move in Sicilian defense structures. Okay, so that covers e4, right? Whether you play d6 right away, whether you play it later, d6 often happens in a number of different openings, including the modern defense, right? You play the modern defense, you play d6, and oftentimes you go from there, okay? Now, what about the move of d4? When do we see the move of d6? Well, you can play it right away, okay? Now, sure, we see this in the King's Indian Defense, which you're about to see a potential transposition, but this move of d6 is actually pretty strong. And I think a lot of players don't play d6 because they're worried about playing a Pirc defense against e4. But if you are a Pirc defense player, I recommend that you think about the move of d6, right? Let's say you play the Pirc and you play the King's Indian Defense. You don't have to play knight f6 first. You can play d6, right? And then knight f6. And by doing so, you're inviting them to enter your Pirc. And oftentimes, if white does play e4 there, they're going to be very unfamiliar with the theory and the ideas because they just played into an e4 opening probably without realizing it at first. All right, but let's say white doesn't play into it. Let's say they play a move like c4. One option here, you can play knight f6. Okay, this is very valid. Knight c3, g6, you're in a King's Indian. Okay, that's fine. You could also play this move e5 with the Ukrainian variation. Very interesting setup for black here. I mean, if white wants to push, that's fine with us. They're overextending their pawn chain potentially as c5 gets a little bit weaker. And if they take, some of you guys might be wondering, wait, the queen just takes, and now we're in the situation where our king hasn't castled and their king can castle, right? Let's say bishop g5 is played. The key idea here is that you play bishop e6, and against castle with check, you play king c8. Okay, if they take the knight, that's fine. We take back, e3 is played. And the key here is to play patient. Black actually has a better evaluation according to Stockfish, but you just have to play calm. Play a move like c6. Get that king up to c7. Drop that knight to d7. Get the bishop active. Notice how many squares we're covering right now. Okay, it's going to be hard for white to break through this. Case closed. And we also have this semi-open G file to work with, an open D file to fight for eventually. Just play calm, right? Don't go crazy. Just develop your pieces. And it's going to be hard for white to make anything happen here to get a one game. Okay. Now, going back, right? We see the move C4. Another option, instead of knight F6, you could just play this move E5, and you are in the English rat defense. I made a video on this, by the way. Pretty fun option for black. Again, if they take, we take back. They can do this whole thing again. That's fine. We're going to play knight F6, get that knight out, develop our bishop so that we can play this move of king C8. Okay, and again, from here, I can actually just transpose into the same exact position. C6, king C7, knight D7, bring the bishop out, all that kind of good stuff. And if they take, we take back. Okay, black here has achieved equality. Okay, if you're in a game and you need to get a drawn game, you know, this might be a good option to have in your back pocket. Okay, the Ukrainian variation, the English rat, these are good options. All that to say, D6 is played quite a bit in options, including the King's Indian Defense, the Pirc Defense, the Czech Pirc, the modern, other options as well. Yeah, it's a solid move. So now we flip things around from the white side, right? And sure, most people play D4, but if you're wanting to play a black opening from the white side, this move of D3 is a great way to do it. Okay. Now let's say, you know, black plays a move like D5 or something. We have options there. There's different things that we can do. We can fee and kettle our bishop, continuing to invite them to push with E5. We can play knight F3 right away. Let's just say they play E5 right now. Well, in this case, what do we have? We could play C4, and all of a sudden you're in a Sicilian defense, but reversed, right? Same exact position, same exact lines and variations, just inverted. It might feel a little bit different because now your queen's on your left side and your king's on your right. But this is the same thing as a Sicilian defense. In fact, let's just say, you know, we see a move here like knight F6. Okay, we play knight F3, we play A3, we take. We are actually in a Najdorf here, a Sicilian Najdorf kind of position, but it's our move, right? Our queen pawn is up one square, our king's knight is developed, and we have our queen's rook pawn up one square. I mean, black setup, you see it. This is the same exact thing as a Najdorf, and you can play it like a Najdorf. Okay, you can play E3, bishop E2, queen C2, B4, right? Develop your pieces. This is one of the many options that you have, okay, after playing the Mieses Opening with the move of D3. Okay, now we see this move of E5. What do we do here? Again, you could play C4. That's an option. Nothing wrong with it, literally at all. You could also play knight F3, okay, and you know, we're attacking that pawn. Knight C6 is played. You play G3. If you see D5, we're kind of playing a Pirc defense, but from the white side. Okay, now some of you guys might be saying, well, we're kind of playing a King's Indian attack. I hear you. Okay, I hear you first off. But it's kind of interesting to think of things from the black perspective. And in this case, we play bishop G2. We castle kingside. And yeah, I mean, you know, the King's Indian attack or King's Fee and Shadow Opening. There's a lot of different names that you can use depending on how you got there, but this is a very solid position for white. And if black tries to overrun us here with a move like E4, let's capture that queen. The big key here, right? Black's king hasn't moved, but the big key here is that black has overextended their E pawn. We play knight G5. We play knight C3. We are ganging up on this pawn like crazy. And yeah, that pawn's just not going to make it. Okay, so all I have to say, I hope you enjoyed this video on D3, right? I just want, I want to encourage you guys, if you like an opening for black, think about it from the opposite side, right? How can I get a Sicilian defense? How can I get a Pirc? How can I get a King's Indian defense? Well, by playing the King's Indian attack, but for white, right? And, D3, when looking at it on its own, it just kind of seems very timid, very passive. I understand that, right? But if you like playing as black, which a lot of players do, give your opponent the center, play a Sicilian, right? Sicilian type of position, play knight F3, right? Go after that center for the rest of the game and have fun doing it. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of February in 2024. You guys have been amazing. I'm extremely blessed to have you guys as part of the Patreon family. There's exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. So, I highly recommend that you check it out and consider it. It's been great to, hang out and get to know the patrons that have joined thus far. And I hope to see you there soon. Have a good day.